The international hammer has finally dropped, and this time it is not aiming for the presidency, it is aiming directly for the judiciary. If you thought the Nnamdi Kanu case was closed because of that life sentence delivered last year, you need to wake up, because the United Nations has just blown the doors wide open. We are looking at a diplomatic crisis that could turn the entire Nigerian legal system upside down. The headline you saw is not an exaggeration. The United Nations Working Group on Arbitrary Detention has not only demanded the immediate release of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, but for the first time in this entire saga, they have pointed a personal finger at the judge who sealed his fate. Justice James Omotosho is reportedly in the crosshairs of international human rights law, and the word on the street in Abuja is that panic does not even begin to describe the mood at the Ministry of Justice. Today, Tuesday, February 10, 2026, we are breaking down the explosive 12-page document that arrived at the Aso Rock Villa and the Supreme Court earlier this morning. This is not just a letter of concern. This is a binding directive from the highest intergovernmental organization on the planet. The UN has officially declared that the continued detention of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, especially after the life sentence judgment in November 2025, is a gross violation of international law. But the part that has everyone talking, the part that has sent shockwaves through the bench, is the warning directed at the specific judicial officers involved. The UN has explicitly stated that judges who knowingly enforce arbitrary and illegal detentions can be held personally liable under international human rights statutes. This means Justice Omotosho, who delivered that controversial ruling, could be facing travel bans, asset freezes, and a designation that no judge ever wants near their name. Let's go deep into what this document actually says. The UN Working Group has reiterated its position from years ago, but with a new level of urgency. They are saying that Nnamdi Kanu was extraordinarily renditioned, kidnapped from Kenya. Under international law, you cannot try someone who was brought into your country illegally. It is called the doctrine of the fruit of the poisonous tree. If the arrest was illegal, the trial is illegal, and the jail sentence is illegal. For years, the Nigerian government ignored this. They said it's a domestic matter. But now, with Kanu sitting in a correctional center in Sokoto and his health reportedly failing, the UN has escalated the matter. They are giving the Nigerian government a strict ultimatum: release him unconditionally and pay him compensation or face severe diplomatic consequences. This is where it gets very interesting for the man in the middle, Justice Omotosho. Usually, judges are protected. They have judicial immunity. They can make mistakes, and the worst that happens is an appeal court overturns them. But the UN is arguing that what happened in this case wasn't a mistake. It was a deliberate violation of a human being's fundamental rights. By ignoring the previous Court of Appeal judgment that discharged and acquitted Kanu, and by ignoring the previous UN directives, the UN is arguing that the court acted as a tool of political persecution rather than a temple of justice. This is a heavy accusation. It strips away the protection of the bench and leaves the individual judge exposed. Imagine being a high-ranking judge and finding out that your name is on a watch list in Geneva and New York. Imagine being told that your visa to the United Kingdom or the United States could be revoked because you are seen as an enforcer of arbitrary detention. That is the trouble the headline is talking about. I have to pause here and ask you, the viewer, because this is a massive turning point. Do you think the United Nations has the right to punish a Nigerian judge for a ruling made in a Nigerian court? Is this justice for Kanu, or is it foreign interference in our sovereignty? I really want to read your honest thoughts in the comment section below. And please, if you want to see how this diplomatic battle ends, do me a massive favor and click that like button right now. It helps us spread this news to more people who need to know the truth. And if you are new here, hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next update. Welcome back. Now, let's look at the reaction from the legal team. Kanu's special counsel, Aloy Ejimakor, has already issued a statement praising the UN's decision. He called it the vindication we have been waiting for. He pointed out that Nigeria is a signatory to the UN Charter. We voluntarily signed these agreements. We cannot choose to obey them when it suits us and ignore them when it involves Nnamdi Kanu. The legal team is now preparing to use this UN directive to file a fresh application at the Supreme Court. They are going to say, look, the world is watching. You cannot keep this man in prison without turning Nigeria into a pariah state. But what is the government saying? Sources inside the Ministry of Foreign Affairs say there is a scramble to draft a response. They know that ignoring the UN in 2026 is very different from ignoring them in 2021. The economy is fragile. Nigeria is seeking foreign investments and loans. We cannot afford to be branded as a lawless nation that persecutes its own citizens and ignores international court orders. President Tinubu is currently trying to build strong ties with the West. Having his judiciary sanctioned by the UN is a nightmare scenario for his foreign policy. There is also the Sokoto factor. Remember, Kanu is currently being held in Sokoto State, a region that is facing its own security challenges. The UN report specifically mentioned the hazardous conditions of his detention location, far away from his family and his doctors. They argued that moving him to Sokoto was a punitive measure designed to break his spirit, not a security necessity. This adds another layer of guilt to the government's case. The pressure is now mounting on two fronts. Internally, you have the Southeast political solution we discussed yesterday, with the sit-at-home being cancelled. Externally, you now have the UN breathing down the neck of the judiciary. It feels like the walls are closing in on those who want to keep Kanu locked up forever. Justice Omotosho might just be the first casualty of this new international pressure, but he certainly won't be the last if the government refuses to budge. The question everyone is asking is, will the federal government swallow its pride and obey the UN, or will they dig in and risk sanctions? And for Justice Omotosho, is it too late to wash his hands of this case, or has the trouble already arrived? We are watching the international wires very closely.